Hello, hello. Hello, welcome to Tripod. I wanted to tell you we got a new screen, and apparently it's a really good one. So I think Erik's going to give you a demonstration by and by. Oh, and a new projector too. Okay, our first presenter tonight is Chip Van Gilder, and he brought these living samples for you to see. He's lived in Tacoma since 1975. He has lived in a number of places around the country, had several occupations, and has had several educational opportunities, none of which apply to tonight's talk. He enjoys, well, how many of you were here when he did a presentation on 3D printing? Anybody? Well, that was pretty amazing. He brought the 3D printer and a video and a kid to run errands and samples and all kinds of stuff. So that's one of his talents. Let's see, he enjoys the challenge of a new project, is easily bored, and his life can be summed up in two phrases. First, he loves to fix problems people don't even know they had. And he finds it easier to ask forgiveness than permission. So he has threatened to go over the allotted 15 minutes tonight. So for anybody that's keeping track, just stand up and start yelling if he goes over 15 minutes.
Is this on? Okay.
Okay, Chip.
So just remember you have a question time. In case I don't answer your questions, we could keep going, right? Okay, most people stand up here at the lectern and talk about their slides, and I don't know how they can see their slides that they're talking about. But these are my bonsai trees, and most of the people, you know, the old phrase, you can't see the trees for the forest. In this case, I want you to see my trees in my forest. And this is my forest in my corner of the yard. Before I get into the bonsai trees, I want to give a couple of public service announcements. One of them is if you have an iPhone, if you swipe down from the top and you get this screen, and you switch there where it says focus, and you click on focus, and it gets you this screen, and then you click on this little, oops, here we go. Click on that, the three little buttons right there, and then you click on until I leave this location. Okay, once you drive away, guess what? Your phone's back on. You don't have to worry about missing calls after you get, and instead of turning the hard button on the side that turns your phone off or dead or whatever it does to it because you got your phone, you forgot 3 days later that you'd turned it off and you got 10,000. Okay, this works really good. That's public service. Okay. Also related to tonight, here's a picture of a tree. Okay. Shh. Okay. Who's talking tonight? Okay, sorry. Okay. So the trick here is you take a picture of whatever it is that you don't recognize, and I didn't recognize these berries. And so if you click someplace on the picture, it takes you to this kind of a screen. Well, the really important part is down here at the bottom, where this little star, you see that little thing, and if it has a star in the upper left-hand corner, and you click on that, it tells you what it is. It's a dogwood. And if you click on that one more time, usually it doesn't always say dogwood or the tree right off, it just says plant. It'll give you a couple options as to what the thing is. Is this mic still on? Yes. I know you can hear me, but is the mic working? I don't know. Okay. So anyhow, that's my public service announcement for tonight. A couple things on the iPhone that, you know, if I know them, I feel like I need to share them. Okay, so let's get back to my trees. This is my forest in the corner of my yard. There's some trees off to the left that aren't in the picture because they need to be in the shade. Anyhow, these are the two trees that I have up front. They're both from year 2000. They're both spruces. I got them both the same night. They were kind of wedding, whatever it is, the bride hands out to everybody when they leave, and I got two of them. I was a photographer at that wedding, and that was the bride from hell, I think is what I remember that. She was the one that called herself that. Anyhow, this is what the trees looked like 12 years ago. If you can see that. They were already 12 years old, and you can see the difference. Okay, so this summer, though, let's go through some of the ones that didn't make it this summer because of the heat. This is an Acer maple that a friend of mine actually purchased for me and gave it to me as a gift. The heat was just too much. Most of my maples didn't make it this summer. Here's a Nordman fir. A friend of mine in Oregon had it, and he almost lost it in the super heat that we had a few years ago. I brought it up, rescued it, and you see how nice it looks August last year. And it did not make it through the heat. It didn't matter what I did, I could not save that tree. Oh, and this is my favorite tree, my wife's favorite tree. That was last August, that was last September. Our hope is that it's just kind of hibernating because it's retreated from the heat. There's some little tiny buds on it. I'm hoping it's going to come back. I'm scared that it's not. I got a quaking aspen. This was really cute. It was nice, kind of a fun style. I'd never seen that style. I just took a picture of it. That one didn't make it, but the sister one did. That was just a couple weeks ago, so I at least have one of them. Okay, so the stuff from this year's growth, you can see this is my blue spruce that I didn't bring tonight. But before we get into the pictures and things, some of you might be saying, well, how did you take those pictures with a nice black background? So I thought I'd show you my setup that I use for taking these pictures. This is how I set up in the backyard with nice natural lighting and nice black background, and then also lots of hours of photoshopping to make it look right. So anyhow, that's just in case you were curious. So this is what the tree looks like now. It's been trimmed a little bit. I took the pictures in August last year just so I could compare them to when I did trim them. So it looks similar. I didn't whack it back too bad. So here's a mountain hemlock. I found this pear down at Woodland. There's a really nice nursery down there at Woodland. It's kind of funny going southbound. You have to go all the way through Woodland, take the exit off, turn left across the freeway, and come all the way back to the north end of town to find it. And then to get out, then you have to drive all the way back to the southbound to go back on the freeway. Unless you're coming northbound, then you just zip right up there. Anyhow, a 2 in a pot doesn't look like a forest. You really need an odd number. So this last year, I did find a third one. You can't really sort of see it. Let's see if I can find the laser here. So here's the 2 right there, and the third one is kind of in the back there. So now I have my forest. I did get them on a rock there. They're still in their pots. Can you imagine? Those things are huge. Can you imagine what it's going to be like trying to get them in a pot? I would need a forklift. Someday, we'll see. Western red cedar, this tree has done the best this year. This is the best surviving tree. Not the best, second best picture. That's not the best picture of it. It really looks great. These are just snapshots to show you what I've done. It's a little more upright. It's really healthy this year. It's looking good. Here's a Norway maple that I dug out of a neighbor's yard when I was helping clean up an area that he was having trouble getting cleaned up, and I happened to stumble on this, and I dug it up, and that was last August, and that's this year. So that maple has made it through, and it's doing quite well. Cascading flowering cherry. So this is little teeny tiny things that were sitting off in a garden right next to this tree here. You can see how that's a flowering cherry, drooping cherry. I don't know what you call it. Anyhow, the top left picture there is last August. Look at what they're doing now. And I've got 2 pots of them. What am I going to do? I don't know. Maybe I have to give some of them away. So anyhow, they're going nuts. I'm not quite sure how to decorate them or adjust them or repot them. We'll see. Here's a ponderosa pine. That was last August. Guess what? It looks exactly the same today. They have to be the slowest growing thing in the world, and that's all right. It's still alive. So some newbies. So this year I got a coastal redwood. I got connected with a Propagation Nation is the site that in there selling redwoods and sequoias. The sequoias didn't make it, but this redwood has already doubled in 1 year. So then I've joined a brand new bonsai club that's meeting out in the Parkland area, and they handed out dawn redwoods, which is an almost extinct redwood tree. They were only growing in a grove in China, and they've since been propagated around the world. And so this is one that I've had that for 3 months. And then this is a black walnut, and the only reason I know it's a black walnut is because it came from my granddaughter who lived across the street. They were working in the backyard, and she pulled it out of the backyard, and it still has the walnut on the bottom. And so I planted it, and it's still trying to grow. We'll see what it looks like in a couple years. Be fun to see. And then within the group, you can get real formal with trees. I call my style Northwest Upright because it looks like what I see when I go into a forest. But these are some formal names. There's the formal upright, and the plus about the formal upright is that the tip of the tree is directly above the roots, and the trunk is straight. The informal, whoops, let's back up one. Okay, informal upright. The tip is also above the trunk there, but the trunk is wiggly. Okay, people get really carried away doing that. I'm not that kind of a person. I'm not that kind of a bonsai person. This is a slanting upright. So, you can get carried away, then you get to cascading, and the thing about the cascading part is the end of the tree has to be below the bottom of the pot. That's what cascading style is. And then the semi-cascading, the bottom of the tree is above the bottom of the pot. Both of them probably should be on stands or something. This one probably isn't, but that's a style that they use. And so, in summary, here's my forest again. But if you look at it, you can see, okay, here's the spruce that's here up in the front, and there's the spruce, there's the blue spruce, there's the western red cedar, here's the cherries, and there's the aspen. Okay, so now you can see the trees in my forest. There's a couple other trees that I didn't bring in and talk about because, I only have 15 minutes. So if we can turn the lights up just a little bit, I'll talk just a tiny bit about the trees up. How much time do I have? Do I have another half an hour? So both of these were seedlings. They were the little tiny in a burlap bag. They were the size of that when I got them. And one of them really was weird shaped, and so I just kept it weird. And the other one I just, it's kind of formal upright, but it's got some bends in it because my yard isn't really, so every time I put it down someplace, it kind of leans, and I put it someplace else and leans. It's what you would see in a Northwest forest, right? If you see a spruce. Now, when I got them, I was told they were Douglas firs. And I, for 19 years, thought they were Douglas firs until I got a Douglas fir, which I immediately killed. But I've killed over 250 trees in order to get the 20 that I have. So if you start into this, just be patient. There's more trees out there. But if you touch a Douglas fir, it's nice and soft. It's like the petting the top of a dog's head. Just if you touch a spruce, it's going to reach out and bite you. Okay, it's like trying to scratch a cat's chin. They're not going to like that. Okay, they're going to reach out and bite you. So that's what a spruce will do. This one actually is on two lava rocks that I found that I was able to blend together and create a pocket. So the root system is in here. I think I'm going to have to clean the roots up this year. I think it's probably about the time that I actually kind of pull this off of there and clean it up and redo it. I'll probably kill it, but I hope not. It's already showing a little bit of stress, and I think that's heat stress also. It's over on the far corner, so it gets the most sun. We'll see how well it does. Okay, questions?
Do you have basins that you keep them on to hold the water for any period of time after you've watered?
No, even like this one, when I was hand watering every day, and I don't right now, I have a sprinkler system that comes on for half an hour for each of my side of the yard. You'll notice how green the grass is this year compared to when I did the photo shoot. It was really brown last year. But I have a sprinkler system comes on and waters them for a half an hour. And that might be part of this too, is that I'm probably overwatering this particular tree, but some of them they need more water. Right now it's survival of the fittest, okay? But no, the water stays in there. One of the things you want to do with a bonsai soil is you want to have a soil that drains rapidly. There's some pumice in there that holds the water in, but what you don't want is wet water. You don't want a muddy ground. You want it to drain quickly so that you have to water every day. So in October, I'll turn the faucet off because it's going to rain enough. It'll make it through and it'll get cool and these trees will survive through the winter. Part of my problem is I probably don't feed them enough. That's part of my situation. So does that answer sort of your question? I mean, no, that they just sit there in the ground and the water runs out. Somebody, yes?
How did you get started in bonsai?
How did I get started with my other 20 hobbies that I have? Just interest. When we were first married, we got married in 70, and about 72 or 73, we were over at a friend's house, and he had a whole series of little trees, and all of his trees were smaller. I'm not sure why his were much smaller. He gave me one. It was a deodar cedar, and I started reading up and all this stuff to do on it, and immediately killed it within 3 months. And ever since I've just kind of always wanted to. I like trees. So when I'm driving around, I see the trees. I don't see any flowers. I don't see, unless they're bright pink or a beautiful color. Then I'm like, oh, that's nice. And then I look at the rest of the trees. And so I'm driving by trying to identify all the trees as I go by. There's a couple of really beautiful giant sequoias around town. You need to learn what a giant sequoia looks like and spot them. Oh man, they're beautiful. Okay. So another question. Anybody else have them?
So is it, I've never thought or seen, what I would call more average sized trees, only the little ones like.
Yeah, most people see only little bonsais, and they're usually a commercial thing that you find at Fred Meyer or something like that. And it's because those are little tiny junipers, and they already have the small needles. And that's why I brought them in to show you, because this is actually more typical when people are growing bonsai trees. If you go, for instance, up to the bonsai nursery up at Federal Way, most of their trees are at least this size, and they might even be a little bit taller. The biggest thing is to keep them in a shape. You want a good taper to the trunk. You want good design. You want a good balance. If you're going to get really sneaky into the bonsai and you start trimming off. I had one guy ask me if I was going to take all these branches off so I could balance the tree. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's part of my tree. That's what it looks like in the Northwest. The leaves die on one side of the tree, and if they fall off because the squirrel got them, then that's fine. But in this case, no. Yeah, this is more a typical size for people who are growing a bunch of trees, and go to the sale that they have up there. You'd be surprised how expensive they are.
So the leaves miniaturize over time? Is that what
That's part of the goal, is to then have a tree that where you miniaturize the leaves. I have a horse chestnut that's actually 2 years older than these. Poor thing just doesn't do well. I didn't show a picture of it because it doesn't do well. But if you look at a horse chestnut tree, the leaves are like this big. And mine look big on my tree, but they're still only this big. And that's the point, is to make it reduce down and make it look like a natural tree, so the leaving will go down. Now, one of the things that happens that I've read is that the flowers and the fruit don't diminish. The flowers and the fruit stay the same size. It's just the leaves that then start getting smaller. This one actually has there's a cone on there. That one actually had a cone that I noticed when I came in today. What? Right, right there. That's it, right there. So it's about this big. So yeah, I've had a couple cones show up once in a while. They're not. Yeah, so it's fun to just trying to get them to go down. Now the deodar cedar that you saw in one of them, the needles haven't gone down. The problem is I don't prune it a lot because I don't know how to make it grow yet. One of the things I do is I buy a tree, put it in my yard, and leave it and don't touch it for a year. Okay, really patient hobby. Don't touch it for a year. And then put it in a different pot, maybe trim it just a little bit. You still want it in a large growing pot. You want it to mature. And then start reducing it down to a bonsai pot. So.
Are you having any fun doing this?
Oh, I have fun doing everything that I do.
I can tell.
Okay, you had one more question?
Is it the pot that keeps it small, or a combination of the pot and the trimming?
It is the cutting back of the roots that minimizes. You do also eventually, when you first get one, like my deodar cedar, when I first got it, it was this tall, and I actually whacked it in half. I tried to make 2 trees out of it, and the top part lasted about 1.5 years, but it didn't really root. But the bottom one did okay. I mean, it just the needles just haven't gotten small yet. So, yes, I do have fun with my trees and my 3D printing. Okay, one more question.
Yeah, are the roots wired into the pot?
A lot of people do that. This one, I think I did when I originally planted it. I think I did wire it in. I don't usually wire them in. I usually put enough in there to hold them down. A couple of them, if it, until they get established, I do have them wired in. Yeah, you want to trim the roots, keep them in. And what makes it a bonsai tree is the pot. So it can be in a 5-gallon bucket. It's not technically a bonsai tree, but that's only if you're going to be snobbish about it, and I'm not snobbish. I've got a neighbor that's got a beautiful maple tree. Yeah, anyhow. Okay, am I done, Lynn? Okay. You're next, Rick. Good luck.
I wanted to tell you one more thing about Chip. He knows a lot about technology, which I think of as little circuit boards and little tiny lights and things. And right now I'm working on some sculptures that are animal heads that hang on the wall, kind of like taxidermy. And they're made out of plastic. And these are the endangered animals that may become extinct. And I wanted it to be that you would walk in front of one of these animal heads and hear its heart beating. So I went to Chip, who knows how to put together the tiny little speaker and the movement detector and the batteries and the little circuit boards. I have no idea how to do any of that myself, but he's making my sculptures come alive. So that's another talent he has. Let's see, I guess I have a couple of announcements that I am managing to remember to tell you. First of all, I'm Lynn, Nino. I always forget to tell you who I am. And I think we've been doing these shows, I'm told, for 11 years, but there was a break in the middle there somewhere. So I think the most recent version of these tripod shows, monthly shows, are 5 or 6 years. That door is being rebuilt so that a wheelchair can get through. So if you go through that door, be careful. Apparently there's some construction going on. And then this church, Center for Spiritual Living, has a couple of concerts coming up. One of them is tomorrow night? Sunday. Afternoon. Oh, that's right. That's this September 22nd at 2 o'clock. Destiny City Music will put on a concert. Eric, does it cost any money?
It's strictly by donation.
Great, by donation. It probably won't be $3.
There's no set amount, they put out a jar.
Okay, and while I'm talking about donations, next month we're going to start asking you for $4 donation. Our rent has gone up, and you can barely get a cup of coffee for $4, so this will be the cheapest thing around. Okay, the other concerts are in October, and I believe these little forms are on that table back there, so you can take a look. Jim Valley is doing one of the projects. That's October 25th from 6 to 9. And there are another couple of concerts. They're all in the same weekend, October 25, 26, and 27. Okay. So Kit Burns is the next speaker. He's a longtime Tacoma resident also, having graduated from Bellarmine over 5 decades ago. He's born in Alaska when it was still a territory and moved to Seattle at the age of 3. The second oldest of 8 children, he learned management of complex situations at an early age. He became an Eagle Scout when he earned all of his merit badges, including the Nature Merit Badge. Kit?
Mike's not on yet.
I think he has turned on.
There you go.
Hello? There we go. Okay. I'm going to move to the back of the room so I'm out of the way and you can concentrate on my photography and the situations I want to show you. One of the things that Lynn left out tonight was that when I got the Nature Merit Badge, it was the most difficult merit badge for me because I just thought trees were green and I couldn't tell them apart. But now I know how to tell what a Doug fir is, so I'm happy. I'm making progress. But what I'm going to do is show you some of the trees around Tacoma, some of my favorite ones. And also, it was really nice for Chip to give us some public service announcements. I'm actually going to be giving you some homework. So I just want to make sure everybody knows in advance. Please pay attention. I think this will work good back here. Now, I did want to say that if you're a contractor here and you're kind of finding out what I'm saying about trees and what these trees need to do for home in Tacoma, you can stick around. A lot of times you'd think I might say, well, why don't you pick up and leave? But you know, trees are a lot about money. And it's also about comfort. And maybe you've seen this, Don't Seattle My Tacoma. There's a website like that. And all the places they're building in Seattle look like all the ones we're building in Tacoma. They're just cubes. There's no design at all. You look at this, and this is one of the ones down in the Madison Park area by Madison Elementary School. It's between 38th and 47th Street. What do you see there? Small trees. When I first saw this, I liked the fact that it had some variation, some color. These aren't the boxes that we're getting now, but we're kind of going backwards, I think. And one of my complaints about Tacoma is the small trees that we have. This is a big warehouse down by the Bridge Industrial Warehouse. It's called, I think, Tool Gauge. And you can see those trees. You think it's a horizontal bonsai garden. I mean, they're not going to get very big. I can tell you that. This is another place in, another photo in Madison area. It has no sidewalks, has no trees. It's very desolate. Now, if you've been to the Pierce County Annex, across the street, this is called 2 Chelan Place. And you look at, where are the trees? Well, there's a little bunch of trees there off to the left there. There we go. And that's because the guy that lives there didn't sell his house. So he's still sticking there. Now, the city does a weird thing. This is really odd. They come back and they are supposed to plant trees, but I've looked at the drawings and they only have small trees planted. You may have noticed along Lincoln Park here they planted some trees, and many of them are already dying. So, not sure. Am I good here? So anyway, we have to figure out how to get more trees in Tacoma. This is a recent one in the Madison Park area. There's no room for trees. And this is part of Home in Tacoma too, which brings me to your homework assignment. The homework assignment is to contact the city clerk, and you can do that this weekend, and tell the city council, if you believe this, to reject Home in Tacoma 2. It's more than we need. It's not well thought out. There are exceptions. You can actually, in a single family lot that has one home now, if you have the right, quote, bonuses, you can actually put 12 units on a single lot. This is not good. You know, the basic lot is 4 units. You can get bonuses in a UR1. I won't go into all the zones. You can get bonus lots, but there's no bonus, or let me put it this way. When you get the bonuses, you don't have to put any parking in. So you could have 12 units and you provide only 4 parking spaces. You may have noticed this along 47th Street. Across the street is that geodesic dome. This is what your property looks like when there's no setback. Tacoma, this is part of the, Home in Tacoma to reduce the setbacks. I chose this slide because it looks very bleak. And there are a lot of areas in the north end, as well as the south end, that look just like this. Nobody thought to put a tree in, and 40 years later, it still looks the same. This is another type of forest in Richmond, California. It's a forest of oil pumps. It's just about making money, but it's not about making things livable. This view is the Madison Park area again, and you'll see that the only place to play, first of all, for a while there you could play at Madison Elementary School, but they've actually sold that. The Tacoma Public Schools sold that. So it's going to turn into another at least 180 units. I calculated it can be actually much more than that. So the only real place to play is right here in the cemetery. And it's very quiet. And I've heard that, I hate to say this, but people are dying to get in. I wasn't going to do that, but I just had to, sorry. It sort of runs in the family, bad jokes. So this looks at it too, and I want to show you this. When you go to the 47th along here, these trees, 60 years. That's at the Tacoma Mall. Think about that. We're just putting small trees in and we're not even nurturing those. So to make a place livable, we have to figure out how to make more trees. Currently the budget in Tacoma is $800,000 a year, and a city our size, it should be $8 million. There should be a full department if we're going to have 30% tree cover. One of the things about trees, they're messy. But it gets you outside, you do exercise, the colors are great, so it's worth it. Now, it's hard to believe that somebody would cut down one of these trees, and it really breaks my heart when I see stuff like this. Now, here's a place in Tacoma. This is over by Lincoln High School. You could basically land an airplane there. There's so much room to put trees, and what do they have? If you look off to the right, they have just these little tiny trees, just tiny ones, and they left this wide open. This is Home in Tacoma too. These are 32.5 feet tall. So we need to really work on that Home in Tacoma. There's a lot of things wrong with it. This shows one of the issues we have with trees, getting tall trees if they go under cables. So that have to be conscious of that. One of the best times to go through Wright Park is in the winter, to look just at the branch structure. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, there's so many different trees, and you can really get a sense, and the trees are never the same. They're just amazing. Look at this, and I'll read it in case your eyes aren't working like mine. Imagine a machine that looks beautiful and can last for generations to capture solar and light energy, convert water, carbon dioxide, and minerals into oxygen and energy-rich organic compounds while still reducing the surrounding temperatures and pollution levels. Amazing. Just think during the rainstorm how much water it takes to cover that doesn't, become floodwaters. It's amazing. This is a tree that's been topped improperly. It's not very pretty, and it's really not the good way to treat your trees. And again, this is not a bonsai tree. Now, one of my favorite places in Tacoma is at 7th and Alder, or 6th and Alder. And this is gorgeous. This is a tiny little place, 7-Eleven, but look at that tree cover. That gives you shade. It's gorgeous. I always love driving by there. That's at 6th and Alder. This is actually across the street from Evergreen State College in the parking lot. Now the trees, the drawing, it's a little bit short, but look, that tree, it's practically dead. And what multi-care needs to go is put some real trees in there, not small trees, not medium-sized trees, but real trees that make our life better. These are some of the Japanese maples that turn such a gorgeous color. This is Southern Catalpa. Isn't that a great bark? Look at those lines. I love walking around Wright Park in the winter because you really can focus on just the tree surface. Now this is something you may have noticed along I Street. Look at those poor trees. Now I don't know if they're diseased, if they're lacking water, but they're obviously not going to last very long. And for us to have trees in the future, we need to start today. And we need a budget of $8 million. And we also need Home in Tacoma to pare back. We need to study that. So we need to explain that to the city council that they should not pass that, in my opinion. This is along I Street. Now I always tell people, when they look along I Street, there's some beautiful little houses, and I was thinking as I made this presentation that what this is a forest. Just all the pieces of wood, all the timber that went in there, all the craftsmanship, cute little house, and we need to take care of our trees so we can have more places like this. We cannot cut them all down. Well, actually we could. We better not. Do you recognize this tree? I've asked people about this tree, and I said, have you noticed that tree along I Street? It's huge. And they go, no, whereabouts is that? This is just past St. Pat's. And it's just massive compared to that. There's actually 3 Lombardi Populars there. So now when you drive by there, you'll notice that one. I think the reason a lot of people don't notice it is because across the street is the Russ Mansion. And you're always looking to the left, unless you're going the other direction, then you're looking to the right. But look at how big that tree is there with the houses. Is that incredible? I mean, I haven't measured how tall it is, but it'll strike you next time you drive by down I Street. This is one of my favorite trees. When you go up 6th Avenue and you hit Sprague and stop there at the school, this looks like to me like it's the Starship Enterprise. I mean, doesn't that just look like that triangular shaped tree? But look at that root. I mean, this is not a bonsai tree, but how the heck do they come up with things like that? It looks like a Charles Moore, doesn't it? These are trees right next to where I live. These were planted 30 years ago. Now, as an architect, I can gauge trees by about when the architecture was. I can tell by looking at them. This is a great walk just down that same avenue, great tree canopy. Isn't that beautiful? What a wonderful inviting space. We can have that throughout Tacoma. And we should. This is at the annex, and these trees are beautiful. You can see when they plant them the right size, the right scale, and rhythmic. And so what if it breaks up the sidewalks a little bit? I'd rather have one of these trees and fix the sidewalk than have 0 trees and avoid the problems with the sidewalk. Now this is on 6th and Sheridan. There's a speedy wash across the street. Isn't that gorgeous light? Just filtered through those trees. And this is just a small section. It's actually basically about 3/4 of a block at that point there. But that tree canopy, that's something we should strive for throughout the city. And we're not going to do it, just randomly planting trees. We need an organized citywide effort. And it takes years to get this. This is a view just a little bit back from the site. But you can see how the trees' branches reach over and really form a canopy. Here's one of those trees we have in Wright Park. A lot of people didn't know this, but there's redwoods and there's giant sequoias. I didn't know it actually until I started looking. This is called a champion tree in Wright Park, huge. And the champion trees have silver plaques, and they're basically known as the best in Washington. I love how this tree, how the heck does that happen? And it still works as a tree, I don't know. Beautiful branches, and what I like about this one, this has the little helicopters there on the right-hand side. You can see those. Again, this is just the pattern of the limbs. And this is why I say one of the favorite times is to go through Wright Park in the winter and also in the spring. This is a problem we're having in Tacoma. This is another tree that has no bark on it, no leaves, but I call it the cable cowboys. Now, I want you to look at trees as you drive around, but also take a look at our cable problems. These limit the height of trees, and they can be a potential problem in the future. Now, this is downtown. You'll have people tell you that downtown you can't really get the tree cover. Well, in fact, you can. Or maybe you can't. Here again, the city allowed small trees in there. This is just in the same neighborhood, but just down on 11th Street. But bigger trees with bigger leaves in these areas could provide a great deal of heat relief. This is along Yakima. It's one of my favorite places to drive, and it's worth just driving there to go to the mall. From downtown, I take that way rather than go on the freeway or go on Sprague. I kind of go through that street, and these are gorgeous. So here you see some more just of what a tree canopy can do. And we should do that throughout the city. UPS, it's a great forest there. It's an amazing place. Take a walk, slow down. This is a picture of Washington, D.C. They do a lot of things wrong, but they got the trees right. If you look up on the upper right-hand side, there's actually a football field, and there's a high school. But what is it? It's nestled between all the trees. And so we can do that. And if we're going to do that, it's not just for the north end or the south end, it's for the entire city. Now here's a picture of Wright Park from the air. Wright Park has about a 40% tree cover, according to what I read. And that's me and my sister's dog, Maddie. So I think, when I talk about not voting no and urging your representative to vote no on the home in Tacoma, the home in Tacoma is really, I think, ruthless. It's basically tied into what the contractors would like. If you can buy it doesn't make anything more affordable. You'll be told that it does, but it does not. And so if we focus on trees, trees are part of what makes life living. And it's so important. So we need to increase the tree budget, and there's money there in the stormwater fund to do that. So if you would like to, write the city clerk and say, hey, this is for the hearing that occurs on next Tuesday. You can do that this weekend. And that you want to speak against the home in Tacoma and say it needs to be rethought, relooked at, and reevaluated. Thank you.
Questions? Ann?
Well, more a comment. There are two beautiful sequoia trees on Kennedy Road at Browns Point. If you want to go and see a living sequoia tree, there are two of them. They should never have been planted where they're planted, but they are still well surviving, number one. Number two, there are some I have been doing battle with a neighbor who is interested in planting asphalt instead of trees. And the folks at the Urban Forestry phone number, which I don't have with me, have been incredibly helpful in trying to stop them from just chopping down more trees, because they have just devastated, yeah. a
Well,
huge area.
Tacoma now has some ordinances to prevent people from cutting down trees, and so talking with them is the right way to go.
Yes,
Yeah.
there is an attorney who was talking to them because of that.
Someone came up to me yesterday by the History Museum and asked, how come there are all these signs down the street that they're gonna cut down the trees?
Actually don't know about that. I didn't see that.
I'm just telling you that because that just happened yesterday. And I don't know any more than that.
Why the history?
We'll have to. I'll look into that. I know we've got some friends that have been
Because
looking
I think
into
of
that.
this hurting the sidewalks or something.
Yeah, that's.
Those things.
You know, I mentioned that. It's like you can fix sidewalks, but you can't plant a tree that's
I
60
know,
years old.
exactly,
And
exactly.
so, you know, we
please
need
check
to.
into that one.
Speaking of trees, one of my favorite places is the Ruston Way. When I first started working as an architect in Tacoma, I was on the waterfront just down by the lobster shop. I was at the very last office down on the right-hand side. And at that time, there was nothing down there. It looked like Tacoma waterfront. And so those trees that are down there now were planted in 1983. Now, if we had that vision for the whole city, it'd be a different city that we're living in. You know, there's some places here that have great tree cover. You know, I was pointing those out on 6th Avenue and stuff, and there's a number of places. But Tacoma only has a tree cover of about 20%. Washington, D.C. has a tree cover of about 40%. You know, we need to have more trees. And so we're going to work on that, see if we can break some of that money that's used in storm water and actually put that towards our tree canopy. But we need $8 million a year. And the city will say we don't have it. Well, they better figure out in a $2 billion budget to make that a priority.
Do you have any affiliations with the Tacoma Tree Foundation, and are they interested in this?
Yeah, they are, and I can't speak for the Tacoma Tree Foundation, but I work kind of with them with the TUFF, and I have some cards with me, and there's some back that Georgette and Jody have to sign a petition to petition the county, or petition the city to be more involved and more proactive. You know, we're not going to just haphazardly put these trees in and let them grow. We really need to make sure that they are going to grow and follow up. So, yeah, we work with the Tacoma Tree Foundation, tough organization. We talked to Mike Carey at the city, and we're doing everything we can to be involved. We have a tree petition, or a sign you can petition you can make and join us and support that. So I would appreciate that too.
Any more questions?
I was just going to share that if you just Google 30 by 30, that will take you to the
Speak a little.
Google 30 by 30.
yeah, Google 30 by 30, Tacoma,
Tacoma.
and it will take you to the petition for trying to ask our city to actually. We've never been a reforested city. Our city was all clear cut. So the trees we have today that are old, some of the beautiful ones that you showed, Kit, is because the neighborhoods are old and people planted the trees 100 years ago. But we never had a plan to reforest. Seattle's at 28%. Portland's at 29%. Some of the recent data from Tacoma Tree Foundation is 17%. So we're not sitting in a very good position. So please.
So yeah,
check out the petition.
go to 30 by 30 Tacoma, and there will be a petition there you can sign. We also have cards that we can share with you, and you can pass off to your friends to sign that petition. And then you can also write the city council. You can come and speak actually next Tuesday too. If you've not had a chance to speak to the city council in person, now's an opportunity.
Well, I was going to say, like Kit mentioned, I do have cards from our group called Tacoma Urban Forest Friends. And we're all about preserving the mature trees that we have and planting more trees. But we want to put pressure, like Kit says, on our city council to fully fund it. So if you want to get a card afterwards, I have them.
Yeah, and I've got some as well, so I'll do that afterwards. I think my time is about running up. But you know, the first cartoon I showed up there was developers and money. And they're not going to build, you'll hear it over and over again, oh, we're going to build affordable housing. No, they're not. You know what affordable is? If you're making the minimum wage, it's $16.20, 28 cents an hour, is $900 a month. None of those houses that are called affordable are affordable. And what this does is, think about it. If you're a developer and you can put 4 units on a single-family house, but the city will allow you to put 6, 8, 12, or in some zones, 16 instead of a single-family home and no parking, you're going to make a lot more money. You're not going to lower your price. So when you hear them say that they'll be affordable, they won't. So we need to at least work on the trees, because we can work on that. Again, thinking about the Tacoma waterfront, that was 30 years ago. It takes that long to build that kind of beauty and that kind of comfort. I've walked along that way, and you probably have too. You think about Wright Park. Wright Park was established in 1895. So you look at those trees. A lot of those trees, if you don't know this, they actually have a card on there that says when they were planted. Some were planted in the 60s. There's a redwood that was planted in 1970 that's huge. But they have the type of tree, where it came from. Some came from Norway, some from other parts of the world. There are 715 trees there, at least, and they're from all over the world. I used to think that that big oak tree in front of the Seymour Conservatory, I thought that that was actually came from the reunion of the Civil War, but it didn't. But it's still called the Grand Champion in Washington State. That is the biggest and best oak you'll see. So thank you very much.
Can you repeat the Don't Seattle My Tacoma website where there's another petition and all the information you need to know about the meeting on Tuesday at the City Council?
Okay, that's what Jody said. Is there's a place, Don't Seattle My Tacoma. It's a website. Just type that in, you'll find it. There's a petition and a different petition you can sign. So, but again, Tuesday's the date they're having the hearing on the home in Tacoma, and we really need to reject that and make them go back to the drawing board. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Kit. It's working hard for us here in Tacoma, doing all kinds of advocacy, so we really appreciate you, Kit. Next is Eileen Fitzpatrick. For some reason, that's not here. She's a graduate of design from UC Davis and has also studied sculpture at California College of Art and horticultural at Merritt College in Oakland, California. Her work has been shown in Northern California in a variety of galleries, museums, public gardens, exhibitions, and private collections with public works in Napa, Mendocino, Los Altos, Cloverdale, Oakland, Orinda, and now her new home in Tacoma in the last 2 Tacoma Light Trail installations. Eileen?
Okay. Thank you, Lynn, for having me here. Thanks for coming, everybody. So this first slide has some sculptures from, it was a volunteer-built playground in 2001. And this is the project that kind of got me back into sculpture. So there's the big turtle from the sandbox. It's about 8 feet from nose to tail. And then that's another octopus in another sandbox in a second of the 2 playgrounds. And these were built with over 1,500 volunteers in 2 weeks' time, although the mosaics took a little bit longer. Okay. So after that project, I wanted to learn how to build my own sculpture. And so these are 2 pieces from a couple classes. And the fish on the left I built sort of for my husband. I call it Lucky Catch, and he is the fish. And so those are my arms that I cut out of steel to wrap around them. And the bird was another project from taking a course where it was really going to be a little bird in a nest, and when I got home, it wasn't finished. I had to figure out what it really wanted to be, and it, got a great big beak, and then I put it on legs. So after that, I was like, okay, now on my first sculpture on my own, what is the first shape going to be? And it started off with an egg. I felt like eggs were the beginning of things, and then I was like, okay, well, what will I cover it with? Because it suggests that there's something inside. And so that set me off on a little path of doing lots of different eggs. The first one was the original egg, which it was just sort of patterned after a baseball that happened to be in my space. My kids were into baseball, and they had extreme on it, so I decided it would be Eggstream. And then I was like, oh, a zebra egg. And then, of course, all that glitters isn't gold, but this is my giant money, golden goose egg. And then the other one is a big snake, because I like to think about, well, what's inside and what birthed these eggs. And so these are about 28 to 30 inches from tip to end. So anyway, I decided I needed to do a dozen, so here's a few more. The figure 8 in the middle, I was thinking I would do several of them, and I wanted to have a great big flat lawn and create some divots as if some giant were playing billiards on this lawn, but I only had the one. So it's the flower, the 8 egg, and Gaia. So that's the continents, and those are there's a little hurricane, and you can see cloud patterns on that one on the right. Here's a few more, the armored egg, and that one was really fun because once I put it in the garden, it reflected everything around it. So when the trees were turning colors, the egg would turn colors, and if you walked by it, you would be picked up like little sensor and kind of, the colors would dance around the egg. The puzzled egg, and the one down here on the bottom right, I call Original Swim. And Phoenix, which I just took to Burning Man this last summer. And it was, where does the inspiration come from? And this was a little tar on a street. And I decided I needed a pair of scribbled eggs instead of scrambled eggs. So, this was a project that I made for a house that had a bedroom that looked out onto this top wall. So it was like maybe 4 or 5 feet from the bedroom window looking at this wall. And so what I did is I walked around the garden. They had a gorgeous garden. And I photographed plants. And then from that, drew a big mural, laid that out, laid plastic over it, and then my netting, and cut the tile to lay into this pattern that you see, and then on the bottom right is a detail. And then I started getting to other three-dimensional shapes. So this is a little fruit phase I went through, and this is how I do my structures. So I use cyclone fencing wire and tie it up, and then once I've got my main structure, I add a little bit of rebar where I need to, if I need to weld something in. And here's a really large apple. So I started this in my studio, same sort of technique with the cyclone fence wire and then adding some rebar, but now I needed a drainage hole because I was going to get water to accumulate. So I got this started, and at one point I kind of looked at the doorway, and it was in just the right time because 3/4 of that apple was covered. At this So what I'm doing is I am dipping fiberglass into this acrylic cement slurry, and then I'm putting it on in layers. And once I've got enough layers, then I can actually coat it with a concrete. But I happened to get it out the door with just barely enough room, and then I had to paint it in my front hall because I had double doors there. So this apple is about 48 inches tall. And here's a couple strawberries. These same format, but what I do is I raise the concrete around the strawberry, and I've added a little steel leaf structure, and then I've embedded some little glass beads into the concrete. And here's Luscious. This is a big peach. It's probably about 29 inches from the bottom to the top. Same structure that you see. You can see it's covered with the small poultry wire at this point. And whenever I put this peach out in gardens, it's so funny. I had installed it in Mendocino, and I sat back at a bench, and I watched this mom and little girl come into the garden, and the girl just made a beeline. And kids are always climbing these things, so it's kind of fun just to see how little kids react to them. This is a series of tomatoes, but this is the one, and here I'm grinding and polishing the concrete before I paint it. And it was the first time I realized how much a tomato actually kind of looks like a pumpkin. This is a couple pears. These are about 29 inches tall, and this was for the Girl in the Fig restaurant down in Sonoma County, California. And now I'm moving on to some animal shapes. This was a large snail that I made, again, working with a lot of rebar. I knew I was going to have kids climbing on it, and I knew that those eyes would take a little bit of a beating if I didn't make them in rebar. So I'm using epoxy for the long stem of the eye there. This is a large iguana. Probably it would be about 7 or 8 feet long if I could stretch it out. And in this case, what I'm showing you is how when I'm doing the mosaic, I have to do all the details first. It's kind of like you really want to get in and do the main body, but you got to get your details in before you can actually cover the rest of the beast. So. And in this case, I'm using stain also on the tails. This is a little series of birds. And I'm always really into chickens. This chicken I call Mother Hen. She is about 4 feet tall. And there you see her in her wire work and then on display at my old home theater. And now she is permanently installed in Los Altos. And these shapes were in the Ruth Bancroft Garden down in Walnut Creek, California. They're probably about 16 feet tall, these enormous flower pods. And I had some work in a show down there, and I just sat there for hours looking at these things, and they inspired some other tall birds. So we have Gulp in the middle, and that's, obviously a compilation of birds that's 5 feet tall, and the bird to the right started off as a pelican, and then it got way too big in body, and I'm like, this is not going to work. And I decided I would put him on legs, and I felt like I needed some exotic something or other. And so I noticed that his beak and his eye were kind of looking like a scissor, so I decided to make my own scissor stork. And this is a flamingo. This is called king flamingo. This is 7 feet tall. And this one is glass. So you can see in the little close-up there, the glass is cut into just about 1/4 inch diamonds for the most part to get all of the body and to get a really nice texture on the feathers. This was a commission for a woman who was really interested in kids' toys, and so I've created a structure out of 6-inch pipe and then covered it with my acrylic cement, concrete, and paint here. And now I'm getting into some more figurative work. So I was really struggling to figure out how was I going to be able to make my structures stand. And so this was a first attempt. And this piece is called Burden, and it was kind of all about things that are going on today. But anyway, so this is made out of scaffolding in this case. And here, this is another piece, Big Butte. She is about 8 feet tall, if I stretched her out. And again, working in the same format with the wire, but I allowed myself to get very voluptuous in parts. And when I tried to lift her, she is about 350 pounds. So I really try to keep things as light as I can. So here's a picture of my studio at one given moment. And you can see the piece in the center is one of the things I'm showing you. There's a few things that I was working on all at once. This is in my Women in Birds series. So again, here's the wire work at the top corner. And then this piece is called A Little Bird Told Me. And I've created the bird as sort of an integral part. So the bird is welded to the shoulder, but I've made the bird in glass here. So it's a glass mosaic. This is Twitter Dreams, where I have the whole structure, and again, the bird is integral to the piece. It doesn't come off. So, and this is the makings of the third in that series. This was a piece called Release, and you can see I'm working with the acrylic concrete in the left, and the figure before I've added the final concrete. And so she's one of my tallest pieces at 8 feet tall. And here I'm working with a little bit of abstraction. This one is called Stargazer, and I was experimenting with the dichroic glass and some mirror. This piece was a reaction to a lot of the trans discussion that was going on. It started off as I wanted to make a shift, a dress form, a little dress form. And as I was making it, and there was all this talk in the news about trans people and their rights and, lots of discussions, I started thinking, well, maybe this is, this shift is about the shift that goes on for people. And so it became a piece that, I liked the little play on words. And so I made one side the woman in black and the man side in white, and they sort of cross into each other, and just made a play of muscles and organs in the andamento of the mosaic. This was another piece that just was screaming to be made. I had originally done this dress form, and I didn't like it. It was too long. I shoved it in the back of my studio, and it got smushed behind the door. And at one point, I said, I'm just going to go cut that up. And I started cutting, and as I was cutting up the dress, it just called out to me no, I need to be this. And so this piece is called Runaway Fashion. This is, again, another figurative work, me working in the wire. I kind of use any space I have to do my art. So, and then creating the acrylic mix and then the final. So this piece was actually meant to be seen from the back. It does have a front, but you're just seeing the back. And here's a little cat figure. This was for a friend of mine who had lost her calico cat. So I wanted to create a little play with calico fabric look. And what you have to do is, again, get those details down. So you can see how I'm drawing in chalk or in pencil and then getting the details in before the finish. This was a commission for a woman who was really into Alice in Wonderland. And she wanted this rabbit on her front doorstep because she wanted people to be able to look and make sure what time they were, because she didn't want anybody to be late. So this is a real working timepiece on this rabbit. And in this case, I'm using some of the bullnose tile at the edge of the jacket for the rabbit, and then the vest is in glass. So there's a really nice sort of dimensional look to the coat there. This is a piece called Prince Charming, and I'm just showing a little bit of the grouting process. So once you get all those tiles on there, then you have to cover the whole thing and then buff it out. So I'm in the process of doing that. This is another couple cats. I was trying to find a quick way of creating some things. So this is Fleur and Bolt. There's a little lightning bolt on the one on the right. And this piece has become, it was made in a class, this mandala. And at first, I wanted to do something totally different. And the teacher was like, no, you need to come from your heart. You need to come from your heart. And I went home and did a lot of meditation. And I was having such bad back problem at this moment. And it was just killing me. And so I felt like my spine was kind of on fire, and I just allowed myself to draw freely with these big arcs, and then before I know it, I'm drawing these funny shapes, and I realized that these are sort of vertebrae shapes to me. And they're black because of the fire. It just felt like it was on fire. So it's sort of a black bone totem mandala is what I call it. But I'm sort of taking these shapes now and interested in making more sculptural forms. So this was the first one I did. This is about 7 feet tall, and this was in Napa for a while. I had never really thought about what it meant to show work in Napa, but at 7 feet tall, I thought, oh, okay, I'm gonna, it'll be fine. And people had said, well, we put it up in Napa, and it was on this pedestal that was 3 feet tall. And the guy, as soon as we finished installing it, now it's 10 feet tall, the guy's like, well, it'll be great until somebody climbs it. And I'm like, what do you mean climb it? And he's like, well, when all the bars close in Napa, everybody goes climbing the artwork. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I know that somebody climbed up on the pedestal because I found this little rock at the top, little nook up there. So anyway, it's kind of interesting detail. So this is me doing a little bit of welding. So once I've got my forms, then I go back and I put my rebar in, and so I'm probably welding those hoops there. And I really polished this concrete and then stained it. This is taking those same forms. This is a poured iron piece that I did in a workshop. And this is another piece. This is one of my most recent ones where you see it on the ground. It's in its acrylic stage, and then I will cover it with the final concrete form. This is about 6 feet tall. This one was on view just recently at the Sonoma County Museum in California. And this is a really large project. It was a commission to make this giant acorn for this woman. So I had somebody create a structure for me, which we had to glue the two foam pieces together. And I had it digitally cut out. So I had somebody digitally cut an acorn for me, and then here I'm strapping it together, and I want to add a little nose to it, and then I have to put the little stem on it, and everything needs to be really quite. I have to press a button? That one? No. Uh-oh. I don't know what to do. Should I just go fast? Everybody close your eyes. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm almost there. Okay, and so now I'm having to assemble all these things, getting the stem with the little steel in there because I know somebody's going to lever this thing off that stem at some point, and the acrylic up in the top. Then I've got a skim coat of concrete, and then I'm having to get underneath this thing, getting in the detail first, and then creating the whole finished project. So it took 6 men to move this thing. And you could see the little steel plate. It's just going to be mounted in the garden under this big oak tree in somebody's home. And they even moved, and they moved the acorn too. So this was a project that I did for a school in India, and they just wanted a mural with their logo, and then each kid did a little bird, and so that's just a little mural project. This is something from the Tacoma Light Trail. So this was the first year, creating a little bit of light art in some cactus form. And then the second year, I added this large hummingbird. So it's about 40 inches from wingtip to tail there, and that's in the Wright Park Conservatory. This is some murals for the city of Oakland. They commissioned me to do 9 small murals on some of their utility boxes. This is what I do is I put it on net, and then I can move the net to the actual side when that's prepped. So the motif was different natives, so it's their trees, it's their, animals, and their insects here, and some flowers. So, okay. And that's it. Okay. Thank you. Back over there.
How thick is the concrete you put over the fiberglass?
So depending on how big the actual object is, mostly I use 3 layers of the fiberglass because that will keep the weight down. I do have some pieces that I did early on that were just concrete, and they are easily 10 times heavier than what I do when I'm doing the fiberglass. But for the apple, it was a really big structure. I needed to go to 5 layers. And then I can just do a very small skim coat. Really, I put it on with gloves. I don't use a tool for that. I've got some heavy gloves, and I'm smearing it with my hands. But I just need enough that I have a good base for my tiles to stick.
How thick are your tiles?
Usually I'm using 1/4 inch, but glass, then if it's glass, it's just,
And it's high fire.
Yeah, all of my tile is high fire. So the pieces that I have up here have been fine. They've been out all winter, and there's no problem with cracking or the glaze chipping off.
Is it a special paint that you use for the outdoor?
I try to use a house paint, but it's like any other paint, it does, after a while, start to peel and have problems. So I prefer to stain things or to do a coat of the mosaic. I feel like that's what's really gonna hold up over time. Anybody else? Oh, yeah.
How was your trip to India?
It was really great. It was part just touring around,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
this was like a week with the kids, and it was really fun to work with them, see how their school day was. It's like in the beginning of each day, they meditate, and they meditate, but how they meditate is they sit down and they play bird song, and everybody has to be quiet for 5 minutes while they listen to bird song, and that's how they close their day too. It was super lovely.
When you have a concrete veneer, is that cement and admix, or is there sand in it?
When I am, so the first stage, the acrylic concrete, and then when I am putting on my final, I am using cement, and I am not adding any admix at that time. So
Just water?
I am adding water. Oh, no, sorry, that's not right. I am adding, no, it's 1.5 cement. No, 1.5. It's 1/3 cement and it's 2/3 sand. No, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. And depending on what kind of sand too, there's lots of different textures of sand. So, anybody else?
Thanks, Eileen, that was great. Erik, can we see those 5 images? I want to show you some images for the show coming up October 18th, the 3rd Friday of the month. And some of you know that I just got back from Papua New Guinea, and I think people are really curious about what goes on there. It's just very primitive and remote. And here's one image. So on October 18th, we're having 3 photographers each show you 15 minutes worth of their trip to Papua New Guinea. So here's one image. You can imagine the tribal adornments are super fun and interesting. Next image. Oh, am I supposed to be clicking this forward? See, I don't even know how to do this. Oops. Okay, these are the widows, and we were told that these women who lost their husbands dress like this every day. When we saw those women, we thought we were looking at a Shakespearean play, and we're pretty sure they don't dress like that every day. These are the mud men, and you might have seen some images of these. Those are clay helmets, and they're just dried clay. They're not fired at all. And they let us try some on, and it's hard to imagine you could walk around with a bow and arrow with that headgear on it. I think it weighed about 30 pounds, the one I had on. Okay, that's it. So you might want to come to that October 18th show, and then I have 2 more images that have nothing to do with Papua New Guinea. Erik, can we see the next one? This is a tree in my yard, and I'm showing you this because Kit or somebody else might have some feedback about this tree. I don't know what kind of a tree it is. I planted it about 20 years ago. And this tree always behaved in a certain way. Branches come out of the top and then they flop over like an umbrella. Can we see the next slide? But now, for some reason, the top branches don't fall over anymore and the leaves look completely different. What's going on with this tree? Kit?
It's reverting.
Yeah,
Called sport. You need to cut all that crap out right away.
yeah.
Cut all those top branches
All
off?
that, yeah, it's
At their
reverting
source,
to,
as low as
it's
it can.
been,
Okay,
some sort of, it's been
Okay.
crossbred, and that's coming out of the original part of the tree.
Okay.
The trunk. It's even like coming up from the trunk.
okay,
And then at some point, the other part was spliced on there, the spreading part. So it'll all turn into that if you don't cut that off.
okay, great. That's what we'll do. Okay. So we'll see you October 18th. Thanks a lot for coming. And next time, it'll be $4. If you want to be on the mailing list, there's a sign-up clipboard in the back corner.